Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I have another tag for you. This is the reader's profile tag. Thank you so much to Elmo at Elmossi for tagging me in this video. I'll link their video below, so please go check that out as well. And I'm excited to get to another tag. It's been a minute since I've just talked about books, I feel like. I've been doing so much traveling and there's a lot going on right now, so I'm excited to get into it. The first question in this tag is, what makes a good book for you? I have an entire video dedicated to this topic, so I'll link that above so you can check that out if you're interested in. But overall, I really like confusing, weird stories, or stories that make you think, or interesting structures to how the story is told, whether it's weird timelines or unreliable narrators. I love anything that makes me think a lot. I also love very good character development, but also there still needs to be a very good plot along with that. I don't mind being confused as long as things are resolved, so that's fine with me. And also I like very playful writers that make fun of their own characters, kind of a la Susanna Clarke, Otessa Moshfegh, and I feel like Ken Liu as well. So yeah, if you want more in-depth insight into what makes a great book in my eyes, please go check out that video. Next question is, what am I currently reading? So this is a hard one because I'm reading a lot of books at the moment. I have books that I'm actively reading and books that I'm not actively reading. So the only one I am really not actively reading is The Ladies of Grace Adieu by Susanna Clarke. This is a short story collection in the world of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. Because this is a short story collection, it is not something I am trying to finish at once. It's a pick up, put down type situation, but I do want to read a few more stories this month. On the other hand, I am currently in the middle of Wall of Storms, or actually very close to the end. This I'm doing via audiobook because I could not lug this giant thing on my trip with me, and the audiobook narrator is very good, so I recommend the audiobook. I'm not sure I don't remember the name of the narrator, but he's doing a great job and I'm really enjoying it. I am hoping to finish this very soon because there's so many other books that I need to start. I have 2 buddy reads that I'm doing this month and it is almost the end of the month, so I have a lot to do. In the meantime, I'm also reading Immortal Dark. This isn't the name of the book, obviously, this is the name of the book. I don't have the dust jacket right now, but I am around 120 pages into this book, but I think I will have to put it down in order to get to my buddy reads because those I am prioritizing more than this one. Those buddy reads are Slewfoot by Brom. This is a buddy read with Claire and her books. I have just started this one today. I'm around a chapter in, and then on Sunday I do plan on starting Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas as a buddy read with Chelsea from Libraries and Lattes. So not too many days left in October, so we'll see what I finish, but those are my main 2 priorities right now because they're buddy reads. And yeah, I think this is probably the most books I've read at the same time. Though on my trip, I was also kind of reading 4 books at once as well. So I don't know, maybe this is my new normal because I used to never read multiple books at a time. But with travel, time got away from me a little bit on my reading this month, so I need to catch up somehow. The next question is, what is the last book you didn't finish and why? I did not finish The Night Ends with Fire by Kayak Song. I have an entire reading vlog about this, so I'll link that up as well. This one I go into very big detail about why I DNF'd it, but I DNF'd it pretty early. So I also know a lot of people have really liked this book, so don't take my word for it, figure out whether you want to read it for yourself or not. But it was just very slow and it read extremely YA when this was marketed as an adult book, but there's no way this is an adult book. And I just did not like the writing and the characters. I didn't really like either. The concept of the Mulan retelling was really interesting, but I just didn't think it was executed well enough for me. So I didn't want to bother with it anymore. The next question is, what obscure book do you wish other people would read? And I have two for this one. One is more obscure than the other, but the first one is The Bone Orchard by Sarah A. Mueller. This one I have rarely heard anyone else talk about, and I really want someone else to read this so I can talk about it with someone, because I haven't been able to, and I read this over a year ago, and it is just so... Like I said, I like weird structures. This is very weird structure and very confusing. And Sarah kind of drops just information bombs throughout, which blow my mind every time. And it was just a fun, very dark, very messed up read, but right up my alley. And I just want to talk about it with someone. So please, someone read this. It's the perfect time too, you know, fall, it's spooky season. So this is great. This one is about a woman named Charm who runs a house of ill repute, and she is also the mistress to the emperor, and as he dies, he calls her to his bedside and asks her to find out who his killer is, as he believes he was murdered. So she goes on a journey, enters politics and society, and a lot of things go wrong and are happening, especially back at her house. So very interesting, weird concept, but highly recommend. The other obscure book, which I don't think is super obscure because this author is pretty famous, I believe, that is Survivor by Chuck Palahniuk. This one is about a man who grew up in a Kurdish death cult and is now hijacking a plane to crash into the outback in Australia, and while doing so is telling his entire life story, which is kind of insane. So if you like really more like not great characters, but they do such weird things that you're so intrigued that you want to learn more, this is the good book for you. This one's weirdly structured too. It's also weirdly written. I never read anything from Chuck Palahniuk before, so maybe that's just his writing style, but this one is an interesting one as well. So someone else please read this so I can talk to them about it too. The next question is, what is the longest book I've ever read? I think that still is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, though Wall of Storms is, I think, going to be a close second. It also probably depends on the edition that I'm talking about, because this one's like 850 at least pages. I think Jonathan Strange is slightly more, though I'll have to double check. But yeah, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell still takes the cake in that category. Next question is, if you could have a dinner party with 5 fictional characters, who would they be? First one would have to be Gandalf, because you'd be kind of insane not to want to have dinner with Gandalf, because he's Gandalf. And whether in his gray form or white form, I don't know. Maybe gray, so he's a little more seasoned, but Gandalf the White can do some awesome things too, so I don't really have a preference there. Second person I would want to invite to my dinner party would be Kunigaru. He is from The Grace of Kings and Wall of Storms, the Dandelion Dynasty series, so this big chunky book is the second one in that series. I can't really give you a lot of info on who he is, but he's one of the main characters in both books, though there's a lot of characters in these books, so him being the main character isn't really like that big of a main character. But based on the books and where his life heads, I would love to learn more about everything that happened and his life. So that is why I can't really give you more than that without spoiling anything on the books. So third person I would like to invite is Wendell Bamblebee. He's from Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, as well as the second book, and there's a third book coming out as well. I can't tell you really why I want to invite him either. I also would invite Emily Wilde as well, because I think learning about her knowledge of fairies and all of that would be really cool. So maybe both of them. I'll pair them up because their dynamic is really fun to watch as well. So I will pair them up as my third dinner party guest. Fourth choice would be Arabella Strange from Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. She is the wife of Jonathan Strange. She goes through a lot of interesting things in this book, and I would love to hear about it. And I think she is a very interesting, smart woman that would add a lot to a dinner party. And last but certainly not least, I would invite Arya from Game of Thrones, Arya Stark. I haven't read the book, so this will be the TV show version of Arya. I think she's so badass and awesome, and I would love to meet her. So no big reason there either. She's just so cool. So that rounds up my dinner party guests. I feel like they would all get along with each other as well. So I feel like this is a good group. I think there would be no lulls in conversation. So I'm happy with my choices. The next question is, what 5 books would I bring if I was stranded on a desert island? First one would have to be Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. There's a theme here. I keep talking about this book. I don't want to get it from my bookshelves because it's just so heavy and big that I don't want to hold it up right now and like have to put it back. So that's staying there. I'll put a picture up. But this one, because it's long, I think I will be able to take my time reading it again. And there's so many things that go on in this story that I would definitely find new things that I missed the first time around, and I think it would do well with multiple rereads. So along those lines as well, I would bring Wall of Storms or The Grace of Kings, ideally the entire Dandelion Dynasty series, but I've only read the first 2, so I don't know if that's allowed, but either Grace of Kings or Wall of Storms I'm fine with. The Wall of Storms is longer, so ideally that's probably better to bring for boredom purposes. But on a more practical note, I would next bring The Wager by David Grann, because this is about a group of people that were shipwrecked and deserted on an island, so I feel like I might get some interesting insight as to how to survive that, though I don't remember if there was enough information to help me, but anything is anything, so any ideas would help. And then the last 2 are definitely more practical books. I would want a book on poisonous plants and edible plants, so I can distinguish what I can and can't eat. And then lastly, a how to build a house for dummies, or a hut, anything that will help me figure out how to properly build a shelter. I would say a boat also, but I don't know if I would be willing to risk life at sea for God knows how long without knowing how to properly sail. So I'm going with the house, and maybe I can just stay there forever. The next question is, what is one book you couldn't put down? I have 3 for these because I want to talk about the books I love. The first one being, of course, Pure Nessie by Susanna Clarke. I read this in a day, basically a little over a day, because there was sleepy nighttime in between. But I fell in love with this world, this character, her writing, and yeah, it sparked my absolute love for Susanna Clarke. So yes, I could not put this one down. The other one I read in literally a day without sleeping is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. This one is very short, so it was not too hard to get through, but I was just so intrigued by this world. Best to know less for both of these books, honestly. Just kind of go for it. I've talked about Pure Nessie so much. I've talked about this one before, but basically we start out with 40 women stuck in a bunker guarded by men, and they have no idea why they're there or how they got there. And yeah, that's all I'm going to give you for this one. And then lastly, this one took me 2 days, but I was surprised at how much I couldn't put it down, and that is My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Otessa Moshfegh. This one is about this waspy girl in New York who hates her life and wants to basically drug herself to sleep for an entire year and figures out how to do that. And we follow her along on that journey, and I didn't think I would like it as much as I did, but I thought it was hilarious, and I love to read about awful people, and so this was fun. The next question is, what 5 books or authors will you never read? First off, I always say never, because you could change your mind as you grow as a person, or something comes up that you want to read it. So I'm never going to say I'm never going to read these books, but at the moment I have 0 desire to read these books or from these authors. So the first one is Colleen Hoover. I am not a fan of reading about very toxic romantic relationships. I just have never enjoyed books like that, even in my romance days. So I just don't think her books are up my alley. And, you know, there's a lot of stigma around her and how she writes and all of that. And I just don't really want to dive into it. So I'll leave it there. Second one might be a little surprising, but I don't really have a desire to read any Sally Rooney books. I just don't think the content and how she writes, based on how I've heard other people talk about her books, is up my alley. So once again, never say never. I know she has a very popular new book out, but as of now, I just don't feel like I want to pick up any of her books. And yeah. Third choice is Haruki Murakami. This one is a little complicated, but also not. I read Norwegian Wood. I've talked about this before, and I absolutely hated it, but I finished it because it was a book swap book that I got from a friend on my birthday, so I thought I owed it to him to finish it. And I had so many issues with his writing, especially around women. And it's not even the misogyny of it, it's just the complete over-sexualization of absolutely every single female character, and it made me feel icky, and some scenes he wrote were just gross to me, and I just can't get past that. I also asked my friend if that is similar in all his other books, and he kind of said yes, so I just don't have really a desire to do that to myself. I don't know. I don't think his writing was anything amazing either. I know Norwegian Wood is not one of his best books, or people say, but it is one of his most popular books, so that's why it's confusing to me. But there isn't really magical realism in Norwegian Wood, which he is known for, so I think that's the only thing I would want to try to read from him. But even then, I just know I'll get angry, like, with any woman he writes, probably, so I just don't know if I want to do that to myself. I also have recently watched a video from Carrie Can Read, who I love and have watched for years, about why she still decides to read from him, and how she thinks that he is more like putting women on a pedestal. I don't necessarily agree with that. I understand where she's coming from, and she's read most of his works, so she has a better understanding of how he writes. But I think there's a difference between like thinking women are like so amazing and doesn't really know how to write them, versus like writing them as like explicitly sexual beings, like there for the main character. I don't want to get into it because I haven't read much from him, but yeah, I don't know if I can forgive him for that at all. So he's on this list. The fourth one is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. I think I said that properly. This book I have seen fly around booktube and booktalk and everything, and everyone says it is amazing and depressing and sad, but like worth it. I just don't know if I want to put myself through it. It's extremely long, and I just don't generally love reading books that will just make me depressed the whole time. So I just don't have a desire to read it. I'm sure it's great, but yeah, I don't want to read it, so I'm not going to. And last but not least, also, we have The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan, and then partially Brandon Sanderson. So this one is my boyfriend's absolute favorite series, and I appreciate that. I love that about him. Like, he's a big Wheel of Time fan. I'm proud of him. He read all 14 books. I have watched the shows with him already. Like, I am caught up. He tells me everything about them. I just don't think I have it in me to read a series that is that long and like already released. I think it's easier to read a series like that as it gets released, so you're not like so daunted by what's ahead. But I also know any series that is that long has a lot of filler in it, and I just don't know if I could do that to myself. And I'm just not as interested usually in every single character in a book, and this one talks about a lot of characters, or doesn't even talk about certain characters in some of the books, and so I can't do it to myself. It's too much, but I appreciate everyone who has done it and who loves it, and props to you, because I am not going to do it. Sorry, Kaylin. And then question number 10, last but not least, it is, if you were to write a book, what would it be about? So in high school, I randomly decided to start writing a book because my friend said she had started writing a book and I wanted to do it too. So I started writing a very emo high school romance set in San Francisco because I was studying at California College of the Arts for like an architecture summer program in Oakland, and I was obsessed with the Bay Area. So I thought it would be really cool to set it in San Francisco, which I knew nothing about really. I just remember it was super emo and dramatic, and yeah, just everything I wanted at that time to read I put in there. And I ended up losing the file somehow. I think I had to get a new computer or my hard drive crashed or something, and I lost the file and never could find it again. So it was a little sad, but also probably for the best because I don't know what I would have done with that or if I'd even finish it, but that was fun to try. But other than that, I am not a writer. I am not a good writer, nor do I have a desire to write a novel. I always think about it. You know, it's like hard when you read that you don't even think about potentially writing your own book, but I just know I don't have it in me to do it, or well, at least. And I don't want to put anyone through like my awful writing, so you're welcome. But if I were to write something, I would say it would be something along the lines of something very weird, very dark, very messed up. You know, what I love and what this channel is built on. So yeah, content-wise, I have no idea. Probably be fantasy or magical realism-esque. I don't know. Fantasy is hard though. You know, you have all the world building and magic systems if there's magic and stuff. So props to you all who are trying to write books or writing books or successfully written books, because I can't do that. So that wraps up the reader's profile tag. Thank you again so much to Elmo for tagging me in this. And I will be tagging two wonderful booktubers, Claire from Claire and Her Books and Mimi from It's Mimi Duong. No pressure, you don't have to do it, but I'd love to see your answers. And thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a good day. Bye.